Hello and welcome back to the channel once again. My name is Andy and tonight it's time for the race or weekend review from the 2019 Bahrain Grand Prix, the 999th F1 Grand Prix in history. Next time up obviously the big 1000 in China, but we need to concentrate on what was a fascinating, action-packed and absolutely heart-wrenching in instance Grand Prix weekend we had, but we'll come on to the main bits of the actual race itself in a moment. As usual, I want to start off by running through the weekend process itself. Not too much to catch up on this weekend. Main parts was that F2 driver Mick Schumacher was confirmed for the upcoming rookie test this week. He's going to be driving for both Ferrari and Alfa Romeo. Some people thinking that he's only got that because he's second named Schumacher. He's definitely got talent, but obviously didn't have the greatest weekends in the F2. Managed to start in pole for one race and the reverse grid, and unfortunately unable to convert it. But he's going to be testing, as is Fernando Alonso. He's actually going to be testing an F1 car as well at some point, I believe, this weekend too. So that's going to be coming up. Williams welcomed back Patrick Head, former technical director, this time just as a consultant role though for Patrick, in the hope to try and turn the fortunes of the ailing team around, who are still struggling at the back of the grid. And obviously the tyre compounds this weekend were the hardest three compounds: C1, C2 and C3 for the hard, medium and soft tyres. In a free practice, and it was pretty much, the weekend was a complete and utter Ferrari whitewash. The Scuderia was so dominant over the weekend. First practice seen Charles Leclerc top the standings for the first time in a practice session. He was a couple of times clear of his teammate Sebastian Vettel, but they were almost a second clear of the Mercedes. The main part from the practice session in FP1 was the collision between Hulkenberg and Antonio Giovinazzi. A bit of a weird one there between the German and the Italian, but nothing too much happened beyond that. FP2, first practice session in the evening, and both teams went for it. Ferrari really turned up the wick as well for some qualifying simulations. Vettel just ahead of Leclerc. There was still half a second clear of Mercedes, and it was looking like that the Ferraris had the car to beat over this weekend for sure. In FP3, just before qualifying, Leclerc put himself back onto the top in practice with another 1-2, still about half a second to 3/4 of a second ahead of Mercedes. Hulkenberg and both the McLarens into the top 10 as well, looking like it could be quite a good weekend for both those teams. Moving into Q1 though, and well, it started going downhill for Nico Hulkenberg out in Q1. I believe he had some engine management issues which hindered his progress in Q1. He was out in the first session along with Giovinazzi, Lance Stroll and, not unsurprisingly, both Williams, who were pretty close to each other. Russell out qualifying Kubica again, but 1.5 seconds off in the next driver, which was Lance Stroll in the Racing Point. That is light years in F1, and well, it's not going to change anytime soon. Q2, well, it was this time the turn off Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull. Another dismal weekend for the Frenchman, complaining of the traction issues which put him out. Kvyat out as well in the Toro Rosso. A complication seen him going out on used tyres for his final run, which means he was out qualified again by his teammate Alexander Albon. He went out in succession as well, with Sergio Perez and Daniel Ricciardo just missing out and making it into Q3. Both McLarens into Q3 for the first time since Malaysia 2017. Would be a good result for them, but it was Charles Leclerc topped Q1, topped Q2, topped Q3 and beat his pit time. Even after it was confirmed he was in pole position, he still went a few times quicker again. Fantastic lap time for the Monaco driver, his first ever pole position. He becomes the 99th different pole position sitter in F1 history as well. Hamilton and Bottas just within a matter of 10th of a second of Vettel in third and fourth there, as Hamilton out qualifying his teammate one more time. Magnussen best of the rest in P6 behind Verstappen, and only a 10th shy of the Dutchman as well, so it looked like it might be pretty decent for the Haas team. They got Romain Grosjean into P8 as well, double top 10. However, Grosjean would suffer a first place grid penalty for impeding Lando Norris in Q1, which would drop him down to 11th place. Sainz was P7 and Norris was P10, which became P9 after the penalty for Grosjean. Raikkonen in 9th place as well, which became P8, and that put Ricciardo up to 10th on the grid. And then into the race itself, and one of the big talking points just before the start was the amount of wind gusting around the Sakhir circuit. It was very blustery. It was causing a headwind up towards turn 4. It was causing a tailwind down towards turn 1. It was wreaking havoc throughout the track, and boy oh boy did this race produce us an absolute brilliant amount of action, and especially in the first number of laps as well, up to the first pit stop phase. So as the lights went out, Vettel got the better start on the dustier side of the track as well, which was quite surprising. Jumped ahead of his teammate Leclerc into turn 1. Bottas done the same thing on Hamilton into turn 1, getting ahead of his teammate. Sainz had a great start from P7 and nearly jumped ahead of Magnussen and nearly jumped ahead of Verstappen as well into turn 1. The Spaniard would lose out to Magnussen but gained that place back through the second lap as he made a good start to the race. But there was just so much going on. Leclerc actually dropped down to P3 and he was under attack from Hamilton at one point, but then into turn 1 on lap number 2 we seen the Monaco driver just kind of sneak a look at Bottas into turn 1. The fin locked up and Leclerc was back through and up into P2 and away after his teammate. Lando Norris didn't have the great start. He lost a number of positions running wide through turns 6 and 7. The other main bit from lap 1 was the contact between Lance Stroll and Romain Grosjean through turn 2. The front wing of the Force India collecting the rear left corner off the Haas, sent Grosjean wide off into turn 3's runoff area. A flat rear tyre for the Frenchman, and what would turn out later on to be damage to the floor as well. The Force India have the Racing Point, there's the first time I've made that mistake this year, having a limp back as well with a broken front wing also, so that ruined both their races very early doors as well. And then not long after though, we seen Leclerc into lap 4, I think it was, start of lap 4, easily getting past his teammate. It seemed like around the outside, Vettel actually defended going into turn 1 and Leclerc sneaked by around the outside. Better traction on the DRS. Vettel tried to attack going up towards turn 4 with a second of the 3 DRS zones available to the drivers, but his teammate defended the inside. That forced the German to lift off the throttle and he lost the DRS because of that. So that didn't help him, and Leclerc was away and up into the lead of the race. We've seen Verstappen having to defend from an oncoming attack up to turn 4 from Carlos Sainz, who tried to go around the outside. Didn't leave the greatest amount of room for the Dutchman, caused the Red Bull to go colliding over the curb on the inside of turn 4. That then pushed him into the McLaren. Damage to the front right wheel. It caused a puncture to the McLaren, and that dropped him down the field and ruined his race. The stewards did look at it, but no further action was taken on that. One of the bits I did notice early doors though, Hulkenberg from down, I think it was P16 he started as well, up to P9 within a matter of laps due to all the incidents ahead. He was having a really good race. We'll come back to him later on. Lap 7 we were starting to see a huge fight in the midfield from P7 where Kimi Raikkonen was sitting, all the way down to P13 with Alexander Albon, who then passed his teammate Kvyat into P4 to P12 as well. Magnussen lost a couple of places, dropped from P7 to P10. I still don't know what happened to the Dane, but that car, that Haas, from being best of the rest in qualifying in P6, it struggled here tonight. I don't know what was going on with it. He really did not have a great race. Ran wide into turn 10 I do think I know what happened actually. Ran wide into turn 10, lost the place to Raikkonen, and I'm wondering if that's where he then lost the momentum to lose places to the others behind him as they were avoiding signs, limping back to pit lane. I need to write better because I can't make out my narrating. Norris defends from Magnussen. Well, Dave Magnussen was then defending from Gasly, trying to make his way back up through the grid. Lap 19, Perez, the first driver in to make a proper pit stop in the race. It dropped him back down the field. Lap 10 seen Raikkonen, Gasly and Albon come into the pits as well, mixing up that midfield scrap. Norris and Magnussen pitted next lap, and just ahead of them, came out just ahead of Gasly and Albon there, with Albon making a pass into turn 4 on Gasly around the outside. It was really good to see from the Thailand driver. There was no action taken, as I say, against Verstappen and Sainz. Verstappen pitted on lap 12. Now, we thought it was just an early stop from Red Bull, trying to play a bit tactical, but it actually turned out it had a slow puncture. All that did was just completely cause everyone else to have to pit as well. He came in a lap 12. Rejoined ahead of Raikkonen in P9. We seen Kvyat facing the wrong way, and that was contact with Giovinazzi into turn 11. Cost him 4 places, down to P10 at that point. He pitted not long after. Bottas pitted on lap 13 for mediums, rejoining P5 just ahead of Verstappen, but Verstappen passed him into T4, I do believe, which got him ahead, but that wasn't to be too long before Bottas got that place back. Hülkenberg pitted on the same lap as well as Bottas. He rejoined in P10. Lap 14 we've seen Leclerc and Hamilton pit from P2, P1 and P3. Leclerc rejoined in P3, Hamilton rejoined in P4, but he was still in the red marked soft tyres, committing to the 2-stop strategy for definite there, trying to make it work, and by goodness he made it work on his outlap. He was about a second or so behind Vettel in second place when he made his pit stop. Vettel pitted next lap round. It was a quick stop from the Ferrari mechanics, 2.1 seconds, but Hamilton managed the undercut. He made a great outlap on those fresh tyres and got the place ahead of the Ferrari. It put him up into P2 and ahead of Vettel, who had rejoined. Ricciardo got the lead for a wee bit. He ran very long on his first stint, going for a one-stopper. Didn't really work for the Aussie, to be honest, long term, but he did lead very briefly, but Leclerc managed to pass him, and so did the rest of them. He dropped down the field and eventually pitted later on into the race, having dropped behind his teammate by that point as well. Coming through here, lap 18, we finally seen Grosjean retire. It was due to floor damage from that incident with Stroll in lap 1, and it kind of quietened down a little bit here. Kvyat got a 5-second penalty for speeding in pit lane. We've seen Hülkenberg passing Raikkonen for P7 using DRS into turn 1 on lap 21. And then Hamilton came on the radio 7 laps into his stint, complaining of the tyre wear being poor on his Mercedes. Vettel was catching him pretty quickly, and he would lose P2 to Vettel up into turn 4. Hamilton was wide into turn 1, compromised his line into 2 and 3. It was an easy move for the German up into turn 4, and he went around and into P2. It was back to being a Ferrari 1-2, but the Monaco driver Leclerc was up ahead, around about, I think it was 8 or 9 seconds clear at this point as well. Lap 25, Ricciardo finally pitted, rejoining P13. Lap 26, we see Lando Norris, the 19-year-old, going late on the brakes, around the outside off the oldest driver on the grid, which is of course Kimi Raikkonen. That was for P7. Made a really good move there. In fact, it was up the inside. Sorry, I'm getting my moves mixed up. So he done another one later on, which was around the outside as well. Lap 31, Ricciardo making his way through past Gasly up to P11. Gasly made a move on Magnussen, who was going backwards still as well. We seen Sainz Sainz passed Kubica into turn 1 on lap 32, while Stroll unlapped himself on fresh tyres on Verstappen, and that was a similar incident we nearly seen to Brazil, where obviously Max was leading the race at that point, but Max backed out of it knowing it was fresher tyres for the Canadian, decided not to get involved in that one. And then pitted next lap on lap 33 for a new set of mediums, rejoining P7. Hulkenberg pitted that same lap as well, rejoining P11. Verstappen passed Raikkonen into P8 on his out lap as well. Raikkonen's really struggling. You could see that Alfa Romeo twitching through the corners from the onboard with the Red Bull. But it was a slow stop as well for Verstappen, because that's what put him behind Raikkonen. They were slow getting the front left wheel on to that car, and that caused him to be behind the Alfa Romeo, where he actually would have been ahead of him if it hadn't been for that. Raikkonen did pit the following lap on lap 34, rejoining P14 behind both Toro Rossos, and then dispatched them with the minimum of fuss nearly. Albon put up a bit of a fight into turn 6, but the Alfa Romeo on fresh tyres easily dispatched him on his out lap. Hamilton pitted on lap 35, rejoined in P4. Now, big point here in the race this. Hamilton was about 3.5 seconds behind Vettel when he made his pit stop on lap 35. Came out in P3 just ahead. Came out in P4. Sorry. Vettel pitted on the next lap. He would rejoin P3, but the gap from him to Hamilton was now just a second and a bit. Hamilton had made another absolutely stellar outlap on those fresh tyres, really turned up the wick when he needed to, and it put him within range of Vettel's Ferrari, but he had rejoined. Leclerc came in on lap 36, rejoined back in the lead ahead of Bottas, who had stayed out a bit longer. Hamilton was starting to get closer and closer and closer to Vettel, and he was starting to harry him into turn 1. Couldn't get the move done, then went round the outside of turn 4, but Vettel would just hold on. Bottas then pitted to leave these two to battle over second on lap 38, but then Vettel had the instant. It was the spin that we've seen, and it's not the first time we've seen it from the German. Heading up to turn 4, Hamilton got the run on DRS. Vettel went to the inside line for turn 4, to the right hand side of the track. Hamilton stuck to the racing line on the left hand side, and with a tailwind heading up to there, because he had checked it, he said this in the interview afterwards, he noticed the flags on the run up with a tailwind. It was blowing towards the cars, so he went as late on the brakes as he dared, using the wind to his system, and you could see the speed difference as he went round the outside. He got the move done, came back onto the track in front of Vettel, just going just a little bit wide there onto the old international circuit, but the German, whether it be the wind just catching him out, whether it be the Mercedes coming across his front wing taking the downforce away, or whether he just lit the tyres up far too quickly, spun the car around. Not for the first time we've seen the German in hand-to-hand combat, let's say, with the likes of either Hamilton. You remember Monza last season, there was Circuit of the Americas as well, you had Verstappen in Japan as well. It's not the first time that Vettel's seemingly got flustered well under pressure, and he spun, and it caused a massive flat spot on those tyres. And as he was recovering down the back straight out of turn 10 down to turn 11, the vibration through those tyres was causing such jarring that the front wing broke totally clean off that Ferrari. Underneath it, thankfully came out the back end of it as well, because if not, then Vettel would have been straight on and unable to control that car, and that caused obviously more problems. Finally got back to the pits, but came back out in P9 behind the two Renaults and behind Lando Norris as well, and it was now a recovery drive to get himself back up to P5 for the German. Lap 41, we've seen Vettel starting to make his way on his recovery. He passed Norris pretty easily, the teenager, probably realising with Seb being on fresh soft tyres, not one to be fighting. He knows the Ferrari's much quicker. Gasly had pitted as well in the previous lap too. Vettel then got past him because of that, so that was actually P7 because he rejoined in P9. That's what that note was meant to mean. Vettel then passed Ricciardo for P6, and then he got Hulkenberg on lap 43. And then on the same lap, he was told about needing to cool the engine, and that was possibly due to debris from the wing maybe got onto the side pods. Remember, the side pods are really, really tiny this year, so he was asked to cool the engine down. And then the heartbreak came in for Charles Leclerc on lap 46. The engine, something strange with the engine was the radio message, and the gap that was about 9 seconds came down to 8, and then 7, and then 6, and that was in the matter of about a lap and a half as well. And he was losing power. The car wasn't doing the engine recovery. It's believed that it was the MGU-H, which was the issue there, and that's basically not giving the battery power. It's not recovering the energy from the turbo, and meaning he couldn't charge the batteries, and it meant he was losing about 160 horsepower, which is enough to power a saloon car, a family saloon, and he was about 20 to 40 kilometers an hour slower down the straights. He was losing a lot of time. It did make the car a little bit skatey as well, because obviously the way it's set up with the energy recovery is obviously through the braking, and when it's not recovering that energy, it's got to go somewhere. You've seen a couple of times coasting into corners, the car maybe just getting a little bit skittish on him as he was struggling. Hamilton reeled him in very quickly indeed. Leclerc's not happy on the radio. First time I've ever really heard him being agitated so badly. And on lap 48, the inevitable happened. Hamilton down the long straight towards the final 2 corners between 13 and 14, easily pulled out past the stricken Ferrari into the lead of the race. And anyone who's watched my reviews knows what I think about Leclerc, and thinks that I think he's going to be the next Ferrari world champion, to be honest. I really, really do, the way things are going. And I was just like, this can't be, because he had drove such a great race. He'd recovered from the start, didn't get flustered, and then to get that, it was absolutely heartbreaking. He got passed by Bottas not long after as well. It was on lap 55, and then on that same lap, on lap 55, both Reynolds retired at the same time. Hulkenberg first pulling off at turn 1. Looked like something went pop with that car, and the rumour is that it might have been the MGU-K system. Now remember, that was the same failure that Carlos Sainz had in Australia, and obviously that's a Renault engine as well. But going into turn 1, his teammate Ricciardo now passing the stricken Hulkenberg car into turn 1, and the car just dies. And again, it's felt that this might be, the bits I've heard is that it might be because of the MGU-K. It's got a fail-safe mechanism, so before it went pop, it cut the car out. Ricciardo got a bit of a reprimand, so don't know if he's been fined or anything for not replacing the steering wheel, but he was not wanting to risk getting electrocuted because the light was on above him. He wanted to get out of that car, but it caused a safety car, and it seems ridiculous to say that this was Leclerc's saving grace in terms of P3 when he should have been winning, but it was, because Verstappen was catching him, would have caught him before the end of the race and would have stole the podium from Leclerc. But the safety car meant we finished under the safety car for only the 8th time in history, and it meant Leclerc was able to drag that car home in third, didn't have to worry about the Red Bull behind. But it was another victory. I think it's victory number 74 for Lewis Hamilton. He's first of the season. He's still second in the championship behind his teammate Bottas, who took second. Bottas leading because of that 1 point for the fastest lap that he got in Australia. So Hamilton, he just didn't have the pace to beat Leclerc. He was up with Vettel, and he was able to put those stellar laps in after the pit stops, but he didn't have anything for the pace of Leclerc until the issue. But you've got to be there to pick up the pieces, and that's exactly what he did. Bottas really seemed to be down. He was about 20 plus seconds off of Hamilton, a bit similar to what happened in Australia, where we couldn't really answer for Hamilton's pace, and although we found out there was an issue with the floor, but Bottas just didn't seem to have the pace in this race to keep up at all. Benefited obviously again in P2 because of Leclerc's issues. Charles Leclerc, well, he won driver of the day for little consolence. He was obviously the driver of the friggin' weekend. He was absolutely stellar. He topped FP1, he topped FP3, he was second in FP2, he topped all 3 qualifying sessions as well, if I remember rightly. Fastest lap of the race. It is his first podium, so we've got to take that. It's the first time we've seen him on the podium. It won't be the last, but it should have been a victory for the Monaco driver, and that is just cruel how motorsport can be. Verstappen P4, probably just beyond what he expected. P5 was probably the goal for him. The Ferraris and Mercedes were just a bit too quick on overall pace. He picked up P4 because of Vettel's issues. Luckily he didn't pick up any damage with the incident with Sainz, and he was able to carry on. Didn't see too much of him. The others were just too quick. Vettel seemed nailed on for P2 for a bit until Hamilton's 2 stellar outlaps after the pit stops, and then obviously we've seen that mistake, and it's, as I said earlier, it's another mistake from the German while under pressure in a fighting situation. Obviously flat spotted the tyres, that's then obviously vibrated the car, caused the wing to fail as well, so P5 was a decent recovery after that, but won't be what he was looking for to start the season. P4 and P5. Lando Norris P6, best of the rest, picking up the scraps that were lost because Hülkenberg was P6 when he retired. Big shame for Nico. I'll come on to that in a wee minute, but Norris then picks up best of the rest. Some good moves. He made another move on Raikkonen later on, just before the issues. At the same time Leclerc was having these issues, he went past as well and defended well from the Finn too, so great race. Possibly McLaren coming back, or is it just the early season bits and pieces going on with the teams? Will they then struggle? It was a bit of a home race. You've got to remember McLaren are 55% owned by the Bahrainian royal family who run the country, so P6, good result there. He'll be happy with that. Points as well. Raikkonen P7, more solid points from the Finn. Ran his race, stayed out of trouble. Typical Kimi race. Leave me alone, I know what I'm doing basically. Gasly finally picked up points for Red Bull in P8, but again it's another poor weekend for the Frenchman. He really needs to start harassing Max Verstappen in the sister car, because if not, we know Red Bull aren't shy in coming forward about some of their drivers on occasion, like what happened to Kvyat. So Gasly really needs to get a move on quickly. He's a quick driver, he can do it, but he needs to do it sooner rather than later. It's a cutthroat business when you're at the front. Alexander Albon in P9, points for the rookie as well. Drove well, defended fairly as well during the race for others in that big midfield scrap. Looked pretty decent as well, to be honest. Actually out-qualified Kvyat for the second race in a row, and outscored him here as well, so great result for him. 2 points, really good for him to get them on the board early doors. And Perez picked up the final point for Racing Point in P10. Quiet race, he done a very early pit stop. I didn't see much of him after that, so I don't know quite much what went on during his race, but it's a point, and a point's a point at the end of the day. It's more than what Williams have got anyway. Giovinazzi was P11, just missed out on points, but he did finish nearly 20 seconds off his teammate on the same strategy in the same car, so he needs to find a wee bit more pace so he can be up there getting points along with his teammate. Kvyat was P12, incident with Giovinazzi, seen him spin, and he received a 5-second penalty for speeding in pit lane. Beaten by Albon and a second spin in 2 races. Remember, he spinned while trying to overtake Lance Stroll, ran wide in Australia, so that's 2 races in a row that the Torpedoes made an error, and that's not something he'll want to be doing too much considering his history with the Red Bull teams. Magnussen P13, horrible race for the Dane, after qualifying P6, best of the rest, and looking good in practice and qualifying. Just no race pace at all. I'm still unsure what caused it as well. Still not been able to find an answer on the internet. But P13, not what they were expecting at all. They were expecting to be in the points and up there around about where Norris and Raikkonen were. Lance Stroll was in P14. Contact with Grosjean on lap 1. The Haas was always going to turn into the corner, but Stroll was on the inside of the corner. It wasn't really anywhere he could go, really. 50-50 racing incident it was classed as. Could Grosjean maybe given a bit more space? Maybe, but It caused front wing damage, wasn't able to really fully recover from it, so no points there. Russell in P15, again ahead of his teammate in both qualifying and the race, so that's good. That's what he needs to be doing. He needs to be showing he can beat Kubica regularly. For Kubica, again behind his teammate, his rookie teammate as well. Got closer in qualifying, there were only about a tenth between them, but he needs to be picking up some pace as well. Obviously the car's got fundamental problems, so that's not good for either of them. DNFs, Hulkenberg P16 to P6 before that problem. I do think, from what I've heard, it was the MG UK. Something did go pop. They showed you a replay of the rear camera view looking back, and you just see something go pop and a wee spark pop out, and it is thought the MG UK might be the issue there. Ricciardo ran a long stint from P10 on the grid before he stopped. Wasn't really the best strategy. He was struggling with tyres badly on the abrasive surface. But then as he went past his teammate 3 laps to go and on for a point, his first point with Renault, the car cut out. And again, it's thought maybe the MG UK to be at fault. There is a fail-safe mechanism in it that causes the car to cut out, and it's believed that's what happened. Carlos Sainz, what could have been for the Spaniard, lightning start, nearly got himself up in a P5 ahead of Verstappen at one point into the start. Managed to get ahead of Magnussen after all of that, and then challenged Verstappen round the outside. Contact between him and the Dutchman, puncture to the front right wheel of that McLaren, dropped him down the field. It's pretty much never going to get anywhere after that. He said afterwards though that he didn't feel it wouldn't be too much anyway, as he was dealing with a gearbox issue all race, which is not good for McLaren because they've already had to replace an MG UK last week after Australia, so gearbox is definitely not what they need to be going on them. And Grosjean, the first DNF in the race, the last of the 20 drivers, contact with Stroll in lap number 1 caused him a puncture to limp round the whole way, caused floor damage as well. They retired the car about a quarter of the way into the race because of that. But another DNF to start the season. It's the same as last year. 2 DNFs started the year for Grosjean. Last week was due to a wheel falling off, just like it was last year. This week, contact with Stroll. First lap could maybe ran a bit wider, a bit of a wider line into 2, but maybe he thought it was ahead. It's hard to tell. It was classed a racing incident. I agree with that, to be honest, but that's not what a Frenchman needs. He's in his 30s now. He's coming towards the tail end of his career in F1, and if he wants to stay there, well, the Haas aren't going to stick with it if he keeps getting DNFs, whether it be his own fault or not. Especially when you see what Magnussen is doing most races as well, but not good. He was the first DNF, and that is all 20 drivers. My opinions on the race as a whole, I thought it was a really good race, to be honest. Actually, a lot of action at the start, plenty to keep you interested. Would have been a bit quieter at the end if it hadn't been for Leclerc's issues. I feel that he had it in the bag pretty much, but that MG UK issue, MG UH for the Ferrari, MG UK for the Reynolds, caused it a bit. I would say the 8 race was about an 8 to an 8.5. If the 8.5 part's just because of the end, it caused a bit of drama. Would it recover? Would the energy system recover itself? Could it be something done with fail safes, etc., and all of that? But no, it did not. But it was still a really good race. It always throws up some good racing, Bahrain, and plenty of overtakes, plenty of DRS to overtake so as well. But you know what? We'll take what it is. It's the sticky tape over the crack at the moment for what is proper overtaking. We'll deal with it. It's better than getting absolutely nothing. China in 2 weeks' time for the 1000th race should be very, very interesting indeed. Also got that huge long straight down towards the hairpin at turn 13 as well. So that's going to be an interesting one. Power needed down there. The DRS could be extremely powerful down towards there. But it'll be interesting to see what happens for the 1000th race. Can Leclerc bounce back as well? That's going to be something. Major issues, major setback when he was on for his first win. How does he recover himself? That's going to be the mark of the man now, is how he does in China. And how does Vettel recover after that? Another spin. It's an interesting dynamic coming up, and the rest of the season is going to be absolutely fantastic. Do join me for future race reviews as well if you haven't done so already. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you're notified of what's going on as well. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time for the race review of the Chinese Grand Prix, either on the Sunday night or maybe on the Monday. I had the chance to do Sunday night tonight because I don't have any AOR commentary because the season's finished, so I had a wee bit more time to be able to do it. But that is it for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Leave your comments down below what you thought. Hit subscribe, hit like, all the usual stuff. Share it about, let your friends know. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining me. Until next time, my name's Andy. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you again soon. Ta-da.